or the pledge. Are there any volunteers? All right, not seeing any. I will happily do the prayer. Bill, will you do the pledge?
Absolutely.
Okay. Our beloved Heavenly Father, we humbly come before Thee at this time, grateful for the opportunity to gather together and to assemble. We're grateful for the blessings that have been bestowed upon our county and the richness that we enjoy in our lives here. At this time of continued turmoil, we ask that You will continue to watch over the good citizens here, that they might find means and ways to remain healthy and safe, and that we can find spirit of cooperation and collaboration as we work together to overcome not only the drought and pandemics that face us, but differences as well. We express our gratitude for this free nation and the opportunity to govern, and ask that Thy Spirit will direct and guide this meeting, that we might our actions might be reflective of things that will be beneficial to the citizens of this county. And this prayer we humbly offer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. If you would, please stand for one nation under God.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Lee, and for all those participating electronically. We'll now go through the process of building our agenda. All items will be considered moved to consent unless held for additional discussion. On our regular consent agenda, we had 30 items initially listed. I have item number 1, the Employee of the Month, to be held for presentation. And I have a note for consent agenda items numbers 23 through 30 to be approved pending legal review. Looks like that's okay with the other two.
Absolutely.
Okay, are there any additional items on consent, Commissioner Lee, for you
Yes.
to discuss?
I'd like to recommend, I don't know if this is, I guess it's on. I'd like to recommend on item number 6, if we could continue that to a work session. This did come before us before. We asked that it go to a work session for more discussion. I know Dave was working with that. If that could be continued to work session.
Sounds great.
Okay. I don't mind number 14 being left on consent with some clarifying language, and I wonder if we wanted to clarify that now. Rob?
Sure.
Yes, Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office. Number 14 just had a typo. It had both the city of Saratoga Springs and the county identified as city, and so it gets a little confusing within the document when they're both identified as city when it refers to them. So we just needed a clarification. The Attorney's Office can do work to do that. So I understand there's a time sensitivity to this one. So you could approve it subject to our review. That'd be fine.
Right, and I'm great with that.
Okay. Then if we could hold number 15 and 16, if we could hold number 21. That's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner Ainge? Okay.
Guys, I hear some real broken conversation. I don't know if it's a connection. When Alice and Bill were talking, I heard it, or Dave Shawcroft and Alice were talking, I heard it very clear. Has the meeting begun?
Yes. So we are building our agenda. I was wondering if you had any items from consent to hold for discussion.
I cannot hear people in the room talking. I mean, I can hear it, but it's
Here's the problem.
not.
The speakers here in the room aren't being picked up by the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not hearing it on YouTube either.
Okay, we are having some audio challenges we're going to work on really quickly.
That's the word I'm getting. Nothing on YouTube as well.
We can hear on YouTube.
Oh, you can now? Okay. That's different.
No, we can hear on
Okay, Tanner, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the question to you, Commissioner Ames, is if you had any items on consent besides 15, 16, or 21 that you would like to hold for discussion?
I had a quick comment on item number 7.
Okay,
Consent.
go for it.
Okay, on item number 7, I'm fine having it on consent for approval. It's not material, but it's an interesting thing. We should not be signing credit agreements with small retailers. I think they can do business with the county. They should know that the county is a credit-worthy agency. So from time to time, these things are finding their way onto our agenda, and I don't think we should have these on our agenda.
Okay,
This has Ben Van with the County Attorney's Office, representing the CJC. I think anytime that there's a terms and conditions, a department doesn't have the authority to bind the county. So because there's terms and conditions attached with those, that's typically why they get on to the commission agenda. I don't know if there's a way we could fix that.
Yeah, like if there's real terms, that's fine. But I think that the reality is, if they're asking us to like fill out a credit application, we should just say no. And that we're the county, we're Utah County, and they should know that it's a credit-worthy agent. And if they don't want to do business with us, we don't need to fill out every single credit application like we're a small business.
okay. Duly noted. Thank you. Seeing no additional items from consent to hold, I will look to our regular agenda. On regular agenda, item number 9, I have that to be stricken as number 30, as it's a duplicate. It's the same as number 30. I don't have, and then on regular agenda, item number 21, that needs to be stricken because that was actually approved in our last meeting. And I have regular agenda item number 29 to be held for action. Commissioner Lee, any additional items on regular to hold for discussion?
Yes, if we could hold numbers 1, 2, and 3. They go together. Number 7 for some discussion. Number 8, Anthony. I think Anthony's on the phone, right? There's some confusion in that document. I'll hold that one. Hopefully he's on the phone. I think we have the documents now on number 14 and number 16. And then number 29, you said you were holding.
Yes.
Number 31, did you say anything about 31?
No.
Okay, number
30 was the one that was a duplicate. We struck 9 because
Okay.
30 was it.
Then number 31 and number 32.
Okay. Commissioner Ainge, so we have regular agenda item numbers 1, 2, and 3, 7, 8, 31, and 32 to be held for discussion. Do you have any additional?
No, I'm still struggling a little bit to hear, but I don't have anything else to hold.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, everything else will be considered approved, ratified, or as noted, and moved to our consent agenda. We'll now move to consent agenda item number 1, which is the recognition of our Employee of the Month. I have the information on that. I will read the letter that was submitted. It says, "We are incredibly lucky to have some of the best county employees working at the Children's Justice Center. There is one employee who I feel is deserving of special recognition for her superior work and ability to manage quite the interesting job assignment. That is Annette Dyer. Annette is our Employee of the Month." So it goes on to tell us, Annette's job title doesn't fully capture the many hats she wears here at the CJC. Annette is the coordinator over our two main volunteer programs, our on-site victim assistance program, as well as our mentor program. Annette is continually recruiting, training, supervising volunteers who generously give their time to the CJC and help in its primary mission to reduce the trauma of the child abuse investigation and help the child feel safe to reveal the truth. Having our center in a healthy, populated college town means we have frequent turnover with our volunteers who are not permanent residents or are getting involved as part of a school assignment. If volunteers are not able to come in for their assigned 2-hour weekly shifts, Annette will try and contact a substitute, but more times than not acts as the volunteer during that shift, spending her time with the child down in our waiting rooms, keeping them engaged in fun activities while they wait for their interview and investigative officials to meet with their parents. Annette has a natural comfort with children and can engage with kids of all ages, with varied backgrounds, behaviors, and needs. She can quickly gauge the kids' interest. I've walked in on fun, imaginative Lego creation projects and intense games of Jenga. In addition to recruiting and maintaining our on-site programs, Annette is keeping track of multiple families and mentors participating in our mentor program. Mentors are community volunteers who go through 40 hours of training to commit to work one-on-one with a child who's been through our center for a 6-month period. 3 times a year, she organizes the training, inviting the speakers, preparing the materials, advertising the training, hosting the training, etc. This is a huge project undertaking, and this training always receives such high words of praise for both content as well as overall experience. She is very invested in not only the success of the program, but the experience for the child, the family, as well as the mentor. She follows up regularly with both the family and the mentor during the placement to ensure a successful match has been made. As if dealing with 50-plus volunteers and their needs isn't enough, she is also the first person to volunteer to help cover phones, help a walk-in, do an intake with a family when appointments have been double or triple booked, read someone's grant report, and offer constructive feedbacks and assistance, clean up and log a donation, etc. She's one of the hardest working, most dedicated staff at the center, and we're lucky to have her with us. Again, congratulations to Annette Dyer. And is Annette with us here? Come on up. Come on up. Okay, next up, I have consent agenda item number 15, which is to approve and authorize the signing of an agreement with the CGBS architects for repairs to the Health and Justice Building, parking structure, and repairs for the Utah County Security Center for the amount of $45,000. Commissioner Lee, you had questions?
Yes, thank you. And I know, Richard, you and I have had some discussions on this. Anytime that I see an agreement that doesn't go through a process of bidding, I'm going to scrutinize it a little bit harder and probably a little bit more. And so with that, I just kind of wanted to have the conversation about why we don't have to go, or why we shouldn't need to go through a bidding process with this. I understand with architects. I mean, this one facility was built in 2000 and I believe 4, wasn't it? 4 or
The
earlier?
parking structure?
Yeah, the parking
Yes.
structure. And so I understand that, the GSBS were the ones that put that together.
Correct.
But we own the plans to it, I mean, since we paid them for that. So I'm just wondering why we don't go through the regular process when we're doing bids like that.
So with this, there's two different projects that are tied to this contract. One is the Health and Justice Building parking structure. We have a brick veneer that's on the building that is starting to delaminate from the structure, and it needs to have some repair work done on it. What the GSBS contract would do would be to design the fix and do all the bidding documents, everything like that, so we can actually go out to a contractor to have that work done. The second part is EFS repairs. That's like the stucco, the siding that's down on the security center in Spanish Fork. Similar type thing there. It's aging out as far as the stucco needs to have some repairs done on it. GSBS was the architect that did both of those buildings originally. As we met with Robert Baxter and looked at our options, felt like it was in the best interest of the county to go back to GSBS because they had done the original designs, and it would likely save us money rather than going out to a separate firm to basically have them have to start over from where GSBS had left off, where they had already done the work. So that's the rationale behind it.
So one of the questions I've had is, did we reach out to another party to verify that would actually save us money, or is that just
I
speculation?
have not, Robert, I don't know, do you know? Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. So I guess that's, I mean, and there's just kind of speculation on there if it would save us money or not. We're just wondering if it would. Okay. Well, the work needs to be done.
Yeah, it does.
I get that. And, but I just, and the next one, I mean, it's another one right behind it too, the same thing. And I'm always a little bit sensitive to that because I want to make sure that we're defending why we're going this way, because, others may call up and say, well, I never even got a chance, to bid on it or do anything of that nature. And I want to make sure we're being open and transparent with that as possible.
Yep.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Commissioner Ainge, any question? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the signing of the agreement as stated number 15 on our agenda, published consent.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
I am going to abstain from making a second because I cannot hear the conversation that is happening in the room.
Okay.
So I cannot vote until I can hear what's happening, unfortunately.
I understand. They're working on that. It should be another minute or two, and they'll hopefully have that fixed. Given the situation, I will suspend the rules and second the motion. I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 15. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That will carry 2-0 with an abstain from Commissioner Ainge, who is unable to, with the notation of technical connection issues. All right, next up we have consent agenda item
Want me to
16.
come up there so he can hear me?
Oh,
Would that be helpful?
It might, if you maybe just could stand by the phone.
so while you're coming up, this is kind of the same situation where we've got a letter of determination stating that we should go with this company without going through the bid process. One of the questions I guess that I have is that I understand that this is going to be intended for a 1-year purpose, and then
Correct.
hopefully we'll have our own built. Wasn't there a company though, Instant Pay, said that they'd do it for free? And so I'm just wondering why we're paying for something if we're doing it for a 1-year period of time, if we're going to just go ahead and do it at the end of the year and rebuild it ourselves.
The instant pay, I believe, covered the payment side of it. It did not cover the reservation side of it. So this would make an all online system for parks reservations, pavilions, camping sites, things like that. It would also make it so we can do the online payment. And with the suggestion from IT that we go with this contract for a year. And then hopefully within that year's time, they would have the bandwidth to be able to go in and actually get us a system built that would be able to do all of the reservations and payment online through a county system.
Yeah. So again, I guess the ultimate question is what determines that we don't need to go through the regular process? Why is this one so different? I mean, there's plenty of people who do this.
Yeah, my understanding is IT is the one that had brought this to us from sports sites. Felt like as they had looked at it, that it was this was the most cost-effective way to go. And there's other sites out there that do this, but they were substantially more money when they had looked into them. This was a fairly inexpensive one for a one-year contract. And then they are also a local company. I know there are other local companies that do similar type things, but from what I understand from the IT side is that this was the most inexpensive.
Okay, I just want to give you that opportunity to talk about it.
Did that help at all, Commissioner Ainge? Could you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you, Richard. I couldn't really hear Commissioner Lee, but I heard you, and I'd be comfortable approving this one.
Same distance away.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can hear us all better now. We've got a little bit of a boost speaker going. I would entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 16.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the signing of the agreement as stated on our consent agenda, number 16.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 16. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
And that will pass 3-0. Next up, we have consent agenda item number 21, which is to approve and authorize the signing of a change order for agreement numbered 2019-147 with Asset Works to eliminate the fuel interface required with Petroproven and change to integrated with the Asset Works fuel program. Commissioner Lee, you had a question?
This one, I've had problems with Asset Works, and obviously I voted against it when it was first being implemented. There were some promises there that, that we'd have some things that would happen with Asset Works and it'd be online and we'd get some programs out of it, which we're still working on, unfortunately. The part of the questions I have here is when we were going into because we're getting rid of a program to get another program, which is more there's some equipment that goes along
There's
with
some
it.
hardware and some software.
Hardware and software, but also there's some training that's going into it as well.
Correct.
And I'm just, this is new enough in the way of this program that I don't understand why we didn't know about this when we were going through the purchasing process. Is it new? Is it a new parcel that they have to it? I don't understand why
It's a component they had in Asset Works. At the time, we were not anticipating changing out from Petrovend. In the time that it's taken to get everything up and running with Asset Works, we've had some issues with our Petrovend software and our hardware that we need to upgrade. And if we're going through that, we felt like it was the most advantageous to have it so it's all in one software package rather than trying to make the two software packages marry together. If we're going to have to spend the money anyway. So that was the main reason why we're looking at doing a change order now, is because we have had some software issues on our current system that we're going to have to actually change out software and hardware on, whether we stay with Petrovend or go with Asset Works or any other vendor. Felt like the best thing to do would be to have an integrated system that would all function together. That will have all of our fuel usage, everything like that, all into one software package and have it all tracked together.
Okay, so, and so we've had this, is it Petrovend? Is that
Yeah,
what it-
Petrovend.
Petrovend, for what, 2 years now? And we haven't used it?
No, Petrovend is actually the one we've been using for a number of years.
Has it been running? Has it been functioning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's one that we've used. That's probably been 15, 18 years that we've been using it. But the hardware is end of life. But it's
On that? It's,
on the Petrovend. So the idea would be to change it to the Asset Works hardware and software and have it all on one integrated system rather than have two different systems working together. So.
okay, end of life. We've had it for 2 years, I guess.
No, we've had it a lot longer than 2 years.
Petrovend?
Yes.
Oh, it's not part of Asset Works?
No, Petrovend is totally separate from us.
So Now you're just folding it into the Asset Works
Correct.
one instead. Okay. Okay. All right, that makes sense then. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no additional questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve and authorize the signing of the change order on our published consent agenda number 21.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 21. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
That will carry 3-0. Thank you. We'll now move to regular agenda item number 1. Regular agenda items numbers 1, 2, and 3 do kind of tie together. I know, Commissioner Lee, you had a comment or a question on these, if you'd like to lead the discussion.
I know these all three tie together with the right-of-way, the changing of, there was a name on there, the Beverly Way as well, and then the transfers, and then ultimately the quick claim deed. And I just wanted to make sure that it was, I don't see anybody here that maybe would speak to it from the association's point, so I would assume that they're probably fine with this agreement all the way through. I haven't contacted them.
Rob Moore, Utah County Attorney's Office. It's my understanding they are okay with this. The very first one is to vacate the 3 right-of-ways within the subdivision plat. That came at the request of the HOA back in February. We held a public hearing on that issue after being duly noticed in May of this year. We had no objection levied against the vacation of those. It does not reference it in the document itself, but it's somewhat contingent upon them taking over the ownership and maintenance of those roads, which is more spelled out in number 2. That is the real estate transfer agreement, and that was discussed at some length with the commission, multiple meetings that they came and discussed it. Ultimately, the county would be these would become private roads, and the HOA would take over the owner, not only the ownership, but also the maintenance obligations of those roads. And the county, under this agreement, would give them $67,400, which represents what we would have been doing in the next couple of years for maintenance purposes on these roads, because it was up for a renovation of the roads, if you will. And then number 3 is the quitclaim deed. Now, I do reference, I just noticed one mistake here. In number 2, the agreement, it references the condition of title, and it identifies 8 exceptions that are supposed to be included in the quitclaim deed. I do note in number 3 that that quitclaim deed does not include the 8 exceptions, and so we would want to modify that to include those 8 exceptions, which have already been identified on the transfer agreement, which is identified number 2. And as I understand it from an email from the HOA back in July, they had their annual board meeting and they approved the transfer agreement in July.
So the conditions of title, those exceptions
Need to actually be on the quitclaim deed itself.
on
yes.
the deed, okay, which,
Yeah.
okay.
So we'll need to add that on there. So if you would approve number 3 with the addition of the 8 exceptions. Did I miss them?
No, I just want to make one clarification, and it may not be a big deal, but before things are formally ratified and
This is Gary
signatures.
Ratcliffe, by the way.
Gary Ratcliffe, County Surveyor's Office. I think on the documents, it talks about the name Beverly Way. Like I say, I don't think this is a huge deal, but somebody might pick this up with the association and might have an issue, I don't know. I think on the old plat, the historic plat, it's called Beverly Drive. And I don't know if the correct name is that critical of an issue in the legality of this transfer. It's Fairfax Drive.
Rob, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know why. It was clear with Richard. But a question that I have is, how much time does the Vivian Park HOA have to complete these improvements?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, on the old historic plat, it's Fairfax Drive, Vivian Way, and Beverly Drive. On our documents, we have it listed as Beverly Way, so that may not be an issue, but something we may want to consider correcting.
Couldn't we just state it that way? I mean, or,
Yeah, we could easily put "or" there. That's the information I received, that it was Beverly Way. That's the reason why it's included that way. But if it's Beverly Drive, then yeah, it ought to be identified. For your information, either Beverly Drive or Beverly Way, neither one of them have actually been built. They were identified in the plat, as referenced by Gary. These is an historic plat built approved 1917, as I recall, much before any of us were here. And it, not everything identified in that plat was actually built. There are a number of things, including a swimming pool, tennis courts, basketball courts, all kinds of things that were not actually built, including Beverly Way or Drive, depending on which one it is.
so Gary, your thoughts pertain to item number 1? That's where we're listing it as Beverly Way or Beverly Drive?
Yeah, on item number 1 now, all of the documents refer to names of all 3 of those roads. The agreement,
Correct.
I think we've got it correct on the deed itself. I prepared that, but I think on the other documents, I think there might be a
Let me make a suggestion here. I don't think this is time sensitive by any means. It sounds like Commissioner Ainge had some concerns or wanted to talk about a couple things. It looks like that we ought to maybe make a verification of the Beverly Way or Beverly Drive.
Right.
And then we could modify that deed to
Modify the
include those 8 exceptions. I don't know, and no one's here from the HOA. I don't think that it's in a hurry. So
Yeah,
I would
let's
think
just
just continue it to the next
meeting.
meeting.
Yep,
We'd be able to
absolutely.
make all those corrections. I can confirm that with the HOA, that there's no concerns with any of those corrections. And then I think, yeah, I'd rather do it right.
For sure.
I'll take a look at that old plat too, but I think what I've got is correct, so.
Thank you, Gary.
That's the first time I've heard that, so I
Right,
appreciate that.
That makes sense. So I'd entertain a motion for 1, 2, and 3.
I'll make a motion that we continue items number 1, 2, and 3 as published on our regular agenda till our next meeting.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to continue regular agenda items numbers 1, 2, and 3. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
That will carry 3-0. Next up, we have regular agenda item number 7. Commissioner Lee.
Okay, this item, and I don't know if you're here to speak to it. Are you here to speak to it? No? Okay. We've had some discussion, even this morning, on this issue with, the West Coast WC3 is what they're kind of referred to. And some of the thoughts, there's probably a lot of miscommunication that was going on during a process in which, a business was working with our community development and also with WC3, and it went back and forth in the sense of that what was told to me was that this company was told that they had to work with WC3. That was the only option on the to work with WC3 as the review document provider for the county, since we do have a contract with WC3 to go through this. And then in talking with the Planning Commission and Richard and also Rob, they're expressing that was never the intent. And so I thought it would be good for us to clarify what they're doing and what WC3 actually does, and then adjust from there accordingly. And so, Richard, I'm going to kind of start off, and then you fill in the gaps as we're talking about this. But there's 2 parts to this. The first part is the inspections that go on with the homes, and they have some pretty strict guidelines. There's 14 days in which the inspectors, the plan reviews have to be done.
Correct.
And because that 14 days is so critical, and with our staff.
And that's actually in state code.
In state code, correct. And with that, as a stopgap because of that short time frame that is in there, because if it's not done within that 14-day period of time, it is deemed approved. And so we want to make sure and go through that process appropriately. And with the staff that we have, we potentially could run up against a problem. And so we've contracted with a company like WC3 now and in the past, to pick up some of the slack. If that happens, that we can call on them, they can make sure and go out there and do it. And because we're under contract with them, they would get that taken care of. It was interesting to note that has not happened at all this year.
Yeah, we haven't had a need for it this year. We have used it in the past. 2 years ago, Bryce, is that when we actually used them throughout the entire year because of being down an inspector. And so we used them quite a bit a couple of years ago, so.
And that's the first part to the contract and why having somebody underneath that contract is important for the county to have. The second part, though, is more of what has come up, and that is that on a commercial basis, there's a plan review process to go through, and going through that plan review process, WC3 is just one of the vendors that is an option. And I think there was some confusion because in hearing from this one business, they thought that it was a sole provider or they were the only ones they could go through, and then on the county side, they have a different version of that. And so in talking with Richard, we came up with an idea to hopefully mitigate this into the future, keeping this contract in place with WC3, but allowing for what you're going to express.
Yeah, since we met this morning, Steve Kitchen, our building official, has written up a short document, half page, that explains what, if a commercial business does need to have a plan review done and it's beyond the scope of what our capabilities are here, the time frame that we can do it in, they can go out to a private third-party plan review or others that are available. Steve has written up a little document explaining that and contact information for, I believe, 3 on that list. Sorry about that. And with that, he's also put a little paragraph at the bottom that if they have another consultant they would like to use, here's the process they would go through to have that consultant submit their qualifications to Steve as building official, so he can make sure that they are qualified to meet the code review requirements that are needed. He's prepared that, and Rob and I and Bryce both looked at that this afternoon, and I feel like it's covered what we need to cover. So.
Okay. So with that, I'm willing to strike this agenda with the understanding that this document will be in place, which in essence, as I'm viewing, I'm going to regurgitate back to you when a landowner comes or they're wanting to do some development, and that's on the commercial side, not on the other side. Right. We're talking only on the commercial side, that there's a document in their planning and preparing documentations that it has in there, a list of or names of plan review companies that the county has already worked with and feels comfortable with. Correct. And if they have somebody that they have worked with, maybe on a national basis or whatever the case may be, here's the criteria of what they would need to have to qualify to be that plan review, company in place.
Yep, and that document has been prepared and will be given out to those as they come in. So,
and just to reiterate on that, one of the 3 that's on that list currently is not a Utah firm. So,
yeah, it's actually out of Denver, Colorado.
It shows you that right. We do have more than inside Utah.
Okay. Was there a comment to this?
Because I have a question on it. Because part of my question would be, given some of the hiccups we've had recently with this firm's performance from a public service perspective, wouldn't it make sense to cancel the contract and go through a competitive bidding process and throw this consulting service out for rebid and then see if there's a firm that can do better? Or if this firm's the best one, then they would be re-awarded the contract. We do have the additional steps in place, which seem to make sense because it gives more flexibility. But I would wonder if it makes sense, given some of the concerns expressed, if we didn't terminate the contract today, and then just simply do that with the knowledge that we have our grace period we're going through, probably, 60 days?
It's a 30 day.
30, okay. And then we could put a RFP together to try and see if we can get a better deal.
For the end of a 30-day period.
Yeah, it would be pretty tough to have a new one in front of you for approval within 30 days. We could certainly get going on that right away if you want to go that way. And Rob, I don't know if they could make a motion that it says 30 days from now, we're going to start the 30 days. Can we do that or
Well,
not?
you could just give them notice whatever date you want to.
Okay.
You could certainly do that. I think that one of the benefits that Commissioner Lee had that you didn't have, Commissioner Ivey, we weren't sure that if you had any discussions with that business. We talked about what this contract does, and it's only kind of an emergency basis for the county to do so. We have routinely offered other places. So even if you were to terminate this contract, it doesn't fix the problem that business had, if that makes sense. Because
Right. And I'm not necessarily interested in this business. I'm more concerned that the contract we have in place for a service that we need is with the best company available.
Sure.
And so what I would like to see is us enter an RFP and to move forward with that and make sure that we're truly using the best company that's out there and available. And I'm not saying it is them or isn't them. I'm just saying I would like to see, given that this has come to light, us do an RFP on it and move forward. And, if canceling this, maybe we just send out start the RFP now without termination of the contract. And if we find someone through the RFP that's better, then we would do the termination notice.
you do that too.
And so that's all I'm suggesting or wanting to have the dialogue about is getting the ball rolling to see if there is a better service provider out there than this particular entity. And if it makes sense to send out the RFP first and see, then I'm happy to do that. And I do understand the processes and what Steve is working on to make sure there are other options available. And I think that's great when it comes to this type of work. And I recognize the need to have a contract for an emergency basis when staff is overrun. We need to have an entity that we can call on. I'm just simply saying we've had an issue arise. Let's make sure we take a step to make sure that this company is truly the best one out there in the marketplace.
Bryce Armstrong, Community Development Staff. Just 2 quick points. I think it's always healthy to kind of relook at these and make sure we're getting the best service that we need. I think it's important to note that from the staff's perspective, when we had to utilize this contract, they've been a very satisfactory and reliable provider. So I think that's important to be stated too. So.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. And I'm just saying, we've got kind of conflict there. So let's just see if this is truly the best one. And if it is, they'll get rehired. If it's not, then we'll find someone else that'll do just as good a job for staff.
A note on there, because this didn't go through an RFP last time, as I understand it, just went through a state contract. And so, going back to some of my concerns when we, don't do an RFP. I mean, I've always found RFPs to at least flush things out. They don't necessarily make it right, but, and I would be fine with going through that process too, since the last one was just a state contract process.
We can go that route.
Yeah.
I guess I would like to just ask, when
Can
we...
you state your name, please?
Steve Bateman. Bateman's Mesita Farm. When we developed a subdivision, when we went to the county health department, we was given a list when it came to working with septic systems of people that were predetermined who was qualified to do the job. And that list was a whole page long, and we was able to choose who we wanted to work with because we was paying the bill. What is wrong in this situation with the county determining several people, which there are probably plenty of companies that are qualified to do this, and where the person is paying, let them choose who they want to use.
And that's exactly what we're doing by changing this process so that it doesn't appear like there's just one.
Yeah, conflict of interest.
That you
with
do
one.
have a multiple choice, or even besides the multiple choice of the county working with those groups in the past. But if you have one of your own that fits the criteria, you can hire them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then we can determine where we're at in the pay scale with that, not have them tell us this is what you're going to pay, and then drag the process out. We had to keep paying every time there was a review. There needs to be a set fee on this. There really does, because it's went on way too long with our process. And every time we had to pay the bill. And I know our architect said the last time that we got a review, it was ridiculous, the things. He said he had never seen those things before. It was like we was continuing to be drug out because they wanted to slow the project down. I think there needs to be choices and there needs to be set fees so that people don't get pillaged.
And I think you would find that we agree.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess maybe then for the actual item today, would we want to strike it, but give direction to staff to start an RFP process? Does
That's fine.
that
Yeah.
seem fair, Commissioner Lee, or your
Yeah.
thoughts, Commissioner Dean?
Yeah, we could either do that, or could we, I don't know if 60 days would be long enough. If they go through an RFP process with, do you think 60 days?
I think we'd be able to have an RFP back in front of you in 60 days.
You know, in rethinking it really quickly, though, let's say we went through an RFP process and they won the bid, you know, to it, then we could, if we struck it, then we'd already be in place, right? Unless the numbers changed.
Unless the numbers
Unless
change.
the numbers changed with it, or if we
Then we
were
amend
to
the
say we
contract.
wanted to give effective date, 30-day effective date, 30 days from now, so it makes it 60 days, it would automatically be going through a process maybe that we didn't want. So I think maybe we should just strike it and go through the RFP process.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
We can do that.
Okay. I would be good with that. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we strike published regular agenda item number 7.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to strike regular agenda item number 7. With all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And we will note that regular agenda item that we are giving direction to staff to begin the process for an RFP for that consultant service. All right, next up, we have regular agenda item number 8, which entails property tax actions. I believe we're hoping that Ben is on the line, or Anthony.
Yeah.
Yes, Ken Conde is on the line.
Is Anthony on?
And Anthony Lubay from the Utah County Attorney's Office is on the line as well.
Okay, Anthony, I read down through the letter on there that was published on our agenda. The only question I have is I'm used to seeing a lot more information on this, and so I'm not quite sure how to proceed with it personally.
What information did you get provided?
All I
That
had
might
was
be a
a
good
letter.
starting point.
Let me get back to it.
Oh, okay. Because there should have been an application that Mr. Conde provided with his rationale and.
Yeah, that's what I'm missing. The only thing that's on the agenda is the letter that you drafted, and then the application it starts with Conde Farms Incorporated and Ken Conde, and then that's all that's on there.
Yeah, this is only one application for review today.
But there's no information.
No, Nate, yeah, Anthony, there's no application on there. It doesn't give any of his background or his reasoning.
Oh, great. Okay. We were having some
Probably need to
agenda issues.
Continue it then and see if we can address it in 2 weeks and get the proper documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's okay with me because I want to make sure you guys have access to this information.
Right.
This was something that I got on my desk end of last week, and I needed to have a conversation that I couldn't have until like this morning. So we were trying to get this ready, and apparently not everything got filed. So I'm sorry for that.
I would just suggest that we continue it.
Yep. I'll entertain the motion.
Make a motion that we continue item number 8 till our next meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue regular agenda item number 8. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That will carry 3-0. Next up, we have regular agenda item number 31, which is to approve a resolution adopting the Utah County Improvement Program for 2021 through 2030.
Thank you, Rudy, and I know we've had some preliminary conversations on this. There are, and I understand what this capital improvement plan is. It's a 3-year lookout for, our capital improvements. And also that this is kind of a snapshot in time, if I can put it that way, not necessarily funded because we still have to go through a budgeting process to put the funds in place or not in place with it. So I understand kind of what we're doing. I just think that it's important to have some discussion on some of the areas as I went down through and looked at some of the items on here. There are a few of them that I'm not comfortable with leaving on this program right now unless we have some more information, with them. The first one on here is Plain with the sheriff's office. They're asking for $150,000 in 2021, then $500,000 in 2026. And that one, I just don't have enough information on that one, and I don't feel comfortable necessarily leaving that one on there. The next one is the classroom and gun range for $2 million. And again, I don't know what that's for or have enough information on that. Plus, when I tag that one to, it has a yearly maintenance fee of $60,000 a year, and then putting money away on a replacement for it, which would be $40,000. There's another $100,000 on a yearly basis that we maintain and put money away for replacement. And so I don't feel, I'm not comfortable moving forward with that one. Then with the wildland fire one, I'm not sure on that one if we are looking at new space, new building, or if it's an expansion. What that one is, I know that they're there now. Or we're talking about trucks, parking. I'm not sure. There's just not enough information for me on that one. The next one is evidence and records. The evidence and records, we've had conversations over the years with this one. Space, and I recognize that there is limited space for that. My questions will usually center around, is that all our evidence and records are there? And we hired somebody recently to get rid of some of those, to get the workload down so that we could get rid of some of those records to free up space. And so that one is just a question on mine. And then the expand the Provo CJC parking lot. I know where that parking lot is, and it's pretty small. There's, what was it, $500,000 on that one? And so I was wondering on that one as well. I just hate to put some of these on a plan, in place without understanding where we're at. And then going down to the stormwater plan, there's $2.1 million in there, and then and let me get to this one so I can make sure and talk to it. Stormwater, there's $2.1 million in a stormwater upgrade building for public works. Not building, upgrades. Then there's also the reconstruction of the fuel site, which I get. I mean, we've been walking that line for some time. And then in the middle of that, there is a design and master plan for the building to be relocated to Spanish Fork in 2024 for $12 million. And I don't see those as aligning. If we're going to be doing the stormwater upgrades in that building there and doing the reconstruction on the fuel site, then I would propose that we take that design of the master plan and so forth for the relocation of the building of the $12 million off, or if we're going the other direction, we'd go the other direction. I don't see those matching up. And then the Bearcat is on there twice. We have the Bearcat, let's see if I can find it, up on the very first page. It goes out to the very end at 2020 or 2030 with $325,000 for the Bearcat. And then also down in the monies, it has like 32,500 per year, going out over a 10-year period of time. I assume what that is that we're adding that up to get to that number, but we do have that number in there twice, which it makes the numbers kind of look funny. And then the Emma Park Road one, I believe UDOT owns that road, right?
UDOT owns the ground under the road.
We own the road.
Jurisdiction of the road is in the county's name. For a jurisdictional transfer that was done back in the late sixties, early seventies. So the jurisdiction of the road is Utah County. The underlying land is owned by UDOT.
Yeah, because I know there was a lot of controversy on that,
We
on that
would love
road.
for UDOT to take the road.
Yeah, I know.
I think we're still trying to get UDOT to take the road, but
Yeah, so on the road ones, on that one, anyway, I that one I know has been controversial on ownership, and I don't know what agreements. Again, I just don't have enough information. I know it's been controversial between the counties and our county and Carbon County and Duchesne County. And then looking down here on the road projects that are in here, one glaring issue for me is that, you know, in our policy, we're looking at a 3-year lookout, and we have 2022 and 2023 is missing. And I think that's a glaring mistake for us to look at, and not having 2022 and 2023 in there as we're trying to take. Because when I look at roads and road projects, B money should be the first one, road money spent, and then SRS money is, and then fourth quarter cent sales tax. And when I see some of the road projects that are on here and some of it, I question if that should be fourth quarter. It's listed under fourth quarter, for instance, road salt, striping, maybe gravel, depending on what it is. You know, some of the, you know, the guardrail stuff, the miscellaneous, the railroad tracks, crossings, and so forth. I would, when I see us looking at fourth quarter, which is primarily a road, and I get that road is more than just asphalt there, but for the most part, when I look at it, some of these others could be taken care of, and instead of directly on road.
What I think you need to look at is you need to look at that whole funding package, the B road money, the SRS, and the fourth quarter cent all together. This looks at the fourth quarter cent for those bigger projects, but it doesn't address all of the other items that are together. So I think, and honestly, with the second and third years out, I simply have not had the time to prepare that. As we talked prior to Rudy coming online here and discussions with Deneen, the direction we were kind of given there is roads is separate. It's got its own funding source. Don't worry about it. So we kind of threw this in last minute, and I simply have not had the time to get the 2022 and 2023. So that's on me. I think we do need to look at the bigger pictures.
I would just like to make a comment. I concur with a number of the comments that Commissioner Lee made. I have several of my own questions. I think that the sense is that some of the comments that we've all had in our individual meetings have not had a chance to make its way through this, and members of the committee have not even been able to complete their work. So to me, this is a very important document in my view. This is something that our bond rating agencies have recommended. It helps ensure that we're planning properly for the future. It kind of sets in stone these plans so that these types of liabilities can't come back and bite us because we're kicking obligations down the road. So I think it's very important, but I don't think this is ready. And I don't think we're going to be able to kind of get it ready through conversation right now in the next 15 or 20 minutes of discussion. So I think this needs to be held for yet another meeting, and we can make more progress prior to that.
Mike, I would concur with that, so.
I would too. I just wonder what that meeting would be, and how we.
Apparently we need to
how
have
we
like
do
another
it.
work session.
Yeah, probably something of that nature.
I would make, to me, it makes sense to, you know, if we can get with you and address our individual concerns in the next week or two, and then have an additional work session in a public forum where we can all sit down together and iron out any details.
Yeah, I would agree that we could sit down and we could work through each one of these items, and we could vet them with all the questions, make sure we've got all the questions answered, all the concerns and things, and put them forward, because we do need to have a good document.
Right.
I would say that we've made huge progress from where we were a year ago. But we're not where we ultimately want to be. And even for this year, we can certainly make some improvements. So it would probably make sense for us to do that. We did not get all of the information packets back from some of the departments. And maybe what I will do is I will request for each one of those departments specifically on these items that have been addressed here in this meeting so far, I will ask for the full information packet so that we can vet these things more fully.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. You know, without information, it becomes speculation. And I think just to stand up and ask, that comes your direction. If we don't get the information that way, it becomes real quick speculation on probably not going that direction. So we need to have all the information, the documentation all the way through to be able to make decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can I add one more thing there? I don't even think it's just requesting documentation. I think, in my view, this capital projects committee is the one to evaluate and rank these projects, right? So nothing should be on this list until the members of the capital improvement committee are ready to defend and say, yes, these are all absolute needs.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, because as I look at this list right now, it is just a list of what ifs. I won't call it a wish list, but I want to call it a list that has just been put together on an assessment of looking at what's out there, maybe over the years. And so I would concur with that too, that it's got to be, vetted down through, not just because somebody asked for it, but why and how and how it's going to come about.
Fair enough. I appreciate that direction. Me being new to the committee here, I haven't had all the direction that we, along the way. So I appreciate that direction, and we will take that and move forward with it. The committee will get together. We will vet this a little bit further, and we will bring it back with the committee's recommendations.
So the question is how long?
That's what I was going to say. Would you like 2 weeks? Would you like 3 weeks? If we do 3 weeks, we could put you on a work session in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting, is probably 3 weeks would be 2 weeks would be a little bit too soon, because everybody's right in the middle of, I just sent out budget packets to everyone today. So we're all in the middle of putting those together. So I would think 3 weeks would be appropriate time frame.
And that should land us, Ezra, if I'm right, that lands us on our next regular work session anyway?
Yeah, that would be September 30th.
Perfect. All right, I'd entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion that we move agenda item, I forget the number. What's the number?
31.
31. We continue it to September 30th for a work session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue regular agenda item number 31 to September 30th. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'll pass 3-0. I do need to circle back to regular agenda item number 29. This is to look at approving or denying a fee waiver for Christina Johnson for the first annual Landon's Legend to raise money for the Children's Heart Foundation to be held on September 26th at Provo Canyon. Do we feel like this, Richard, meets our standard of
Yes,
approving because it's giving back more than it would?
Yep, but they do have the appropriate paperwork for their 501c3. If I can find you the right document here, somewhere in this stack. The 501c3 that's actually doing it is the Children's Heart Foundation. Christina Johnson is the one who's running it. The Landon's Legend, I believe it was her son, who passed away due to some heart issues. So that's why they're doing this, to raise money for this Heart Foundation. So they have all the appropriate paperwork. We've got the insurance from them, things of that nature. So
Perfect. All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the fee waiver for the Christina Johnson annual Landon's Legend run. And the findings is that we see it in the best interest of the county to do so.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 29 with findings. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That will carry 3-0. Up next, I have regular agenda item number 32. Commissioner Lee, you had a question on this one.
Yeah, this one came before us before, and the question was to go back and we have fees that are, that we charge 70, I think it's 72?
$72.
72 or 75, I can't.
Five.
75 dollars an hour. This one's coming to us at $56 an hour. I understand there's a set amount of money, 20-something, 25, 23,000 dollars that the Forest Service has agreed to. Lieutenant Keith was gonna go back and talk with the Forest Service to see if they were okay in changing that number to the 75. I think that's where we left it.
Yeah, and I talked to Lieutenant Keith. He did not put this back on the agenda. In fact, he just got the new agreement today. But since it's on there, I'll just pose that we can do it either way, but it really doesn't matter. The amount stays 23, and this isn't. It's not like we've got an event permit or something else that fee set on. This is a cooperative law enforcement agreement that we have responsibility anyway in these areas, and the Forest Service, this is their mechanism to give us this money to help us. And then on the other end, they just need an accountability of how it was used. So they really don't care what formula we use, whether it's 75 or actual costs. I would pose a standing contract is more than sufficient because the money's the same, and regardless whether the money's there or not, we're still responsible to patrol those canyons.
Right, and I understand that, and I think that the reason why I'm sensitive to it is because I want to be consistent, with what we charge, to the general public out there for me.
Right, but this isn't the general public. This is the U.S. Forest Service. It's a cooperative agreement with another law enforcement entity.
Yes, and with the Forest Service, having 50% owning 50% of the land, in this county, there is a significant role that we play in there, and also detriment to us because we can't tax that land. I mean, we know that we get a little bit of PILT money for that, and I don't want it to. And if it doesn't matter,
They're not gonna. If we come back and say 75, it's not gonna increase the amount of money.
No,
It
I
stays
get
the
that.
same.
I get that. I think it just makes it consistent across the board where we're not, it doesn't look like there's any charge different for somebody within the public versus the Forest Service.
Right. So my understanding, it sounds like we could pass this today with the noted amendment of the $75 notation as a noted change.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the commission chair to sign the cooperative law enforcement agreement with the stated $75, which has been agreed to for a charge for deputies. I think does that cover it, Rob? Is that good enough? Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 32 with the noted change. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That will carry 3-0. All right, next up, we have the setting of our closed meetings. Rob, do you remember the list? I can pull
The only one I'm aware of is litigation.
litigation.
And 33.
Okay. I'll entertain motions to strike and set those.
I'll make a motion that we strike agenda item number 34 and 35.
Second.
I have a motion to strike regular agenda items numbers 34 and 35. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That will carry 3-0.
I'll make a motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for closed meetings as stated in number 33 and 36 for this location following our regular agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to set the closed meetings as described in regular agenda items numbers 33 and 36 for immediately following the close of our regular business. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That will carry 3-0. We have no work session items. We would now turn the time to the general public for public comment. Hearing and seeing none, we'll thank everyone for their participation and move into our closed meeting.